all three of us, and I say three of us, meaning clients and me and the builder at the table and having honest conversations, that's the best way to go about a project, right? Because everybody understands expectations at that point.
In this week's installment of the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, we pick up our conversation with architect Steve Baczek. On the regular Fine Homebuilding podcast, we've been talking a lot lately about affordability, housing affordability, and it's sparked a lot of conversation amongst listeners why houses are so expensive, and I'm sure you'd agree there's a number of factors involved. What do you think the study of architecture, the field of architecture, should be doing to make some housing more affordable so working class folk can afford a new home or maybe a townhome or a condo or whatever it might be? How is there such a discrepancy between most architect-driven projects and the rest of us?
It's so there's probably about 3 doors I can open up here and go into 3 totally different rooms. So there's certainly the one where, there's some really good experienced architects that just, they would rather do the million plus, house and not have to deal with the smaller one. There's, I get a lot of calls from people that, want a very affordable house, want it extremely energy efficient and such, but their dreams are inversely proportional to their wallets, and they just can't. I mean, everybody wants to do the right thing. Oh, I want to do this and near passive house and all of this, and I have 200,000. It's like, I'm sorry, but we're in the Boston area. Like, I can't get a builder to return a phone call on a $200,000 budget. Unless you're building about 300 square feet, right? If you want to build a little tool shed out back, put a toilet in it and a bunk bed, then we can have the conversation. But so it's a challenge. And the other thing that bothers me about cost is, we say, well, this is really expensive. Well, what's it based on, right? We have this kind of what I'll call an imaginary baseline of whatever, pick a number, $200 a square foot or whatever this number is, that anything above this number is real expensive. Everything below this number is cheap. And some builders would say, well, that's, not just a good quality build if you're building for that. And people say, oh no, I can just build a really good house for that price. So it's really hard. And the other thing is even people that, have kind of lesser options available to them financially, that they still want big things. It's like, I can't tell you how many people, we're very modest kitchen, this and that. And then they're appliance shopping and it's like, $5,000 refrigerator, $3,000 stove. And it's like, I thought we were trying to be really modest here. You're at like $16,000, $17,000 in appliances when you should be at 7 or 8. Well, we just thought we're not going to do this again. And, you get that whole story. So there's, America makes it real easy to spend money. And I tell people that. I said, listen, go to an appliance shop. Just take a walk around. The first
stuff is
time.
beautiful.
Yeah, and they make it real easy. And it's like, there's, I tell all my clients the example. You walk in the appliance store, there's a $1,200 white stove. There's a, $2,000 stainless steel knockoff. And then there's the $4,000 Wolf range. Guess which one you want to buy, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and the thing is if you stay there long enough, you'll talk yourself into it. Well, this is the last time I'm going to do this. This is my dream kitchen. It's only another $2,000. Yeah, well, there you go. But, don't give me we're real modest kind of people. But I think it is, dangerous that we can't get these houses out to people. In Boston, it's, unless you're living 60, 70 miles away, like, you have to have a pretty decent income to buy a house. I think I live about 12 miles north of Boston, bought my house in 96 for I don't know, it was less than 200K. And it's on just under a half an acre. And the house across the street is about 60% of the size. They did a whole house renovation to it, but it sold for like 685 like a year ago.
And I hear of people tearing those down to put up duplexes and triplexes. I don't know if they can do that where you are, but in Boston, that's not uncommon, is to pay $500,000 and then tear it down.
Yeah, I mean, the builders can certainly leverage their costs, and they do that here. A lot of it is more on the streets that are closer to the center of town. You'll get somebody that tears down an old house, and they'll put up a 2 or 3 kind of condo unit, multifamily, and then sell each one for 600K, and they're 1,600 feet or something, 2-bedroom.
Do you think there are public policy changes that could make housing more affordable? I hear a lot of builders, especially big builders, talk about the cost of land and then project costs related to management and wetlands permitting and all these issues that are constructs of the last, say, 30, 40 years. Do you think there are changes our government or we as citizens could make that would make housing more affordable?
I don't see. That's a tough one for me, because who has, I mean, how do you set that up initially, right? How do you say, okay, we're going to take this big piece of land and we're going to set it and sell it for half the price that it's normally valued at, so that people can live here successfully? It's certainly not fair that everybody can't have a house, but it's certainly not fair that some people choose to work for things that other people may not choose to work for. Or, I mean, I guess some of them certainly don't have the opportunity. I'm trying not to knock it, certainly, but how do you set up that system? I mean, that's a challenge, right? Because you're kind of stealing a lollipop from one kid to make another kid happy, and so someone's angry and someone's very happy, and the question is who. Right?
And there's always pushback from other entities evolving projects where you're doing affordable housing development or senior housing development. Oftentimes folks don't want those kind of projects in their neighborhoods, and that's an obstacle too.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly is. I think, and you see it a little. I think one of the things that towns can do is have a little bit more leniency on the whole in-law suite and kind of on-site apartment, or whatever you want to call it, whatever name it is, because I mean, parents are living longer, and it's the cost of nursing homes is absolutely incredible.
And we've learned that's not the healthiest place for old people, right? You know what I mean? It's not ideal.
Place. But even, kids that go off to college and come back, they don't really want to live at home with mom and dad, but they can't afford to live in an apartment in town necessarily. So why not let me put that little kitchenette above the garage, throw a bathroom up there, and let them have a little studio space that they can kind of come and go as they want, but they have the security of kind of being on mom and dad's property, And
mom and dad, when kids finally do leave, they get to have a source of rental income, right? Which is a great thing and provides housing for someone who's needs it.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's a lot of ways to think about that, and I've never done. I've talked to a couple guys, but we talked about doing a multifamily project, and I have this thought in my head that's kind of Microstudio, where we build these off-site studio apartments, like 450 square feet. It's literally a bedroom with a living space and 8-10 feet of kitchen cabinets along one side and a bathroom. It's nothing really huge, but you could build these on trailers, bring them out, build a nice concrete platform somewhere like podium construction, have the retail space underneath, and then stack these, 5 high, 6 wide, and now you have 30 Microstudios for rent on a really small piece of property that, you'd have to work with the town on parking and this and that. But a lot of times the people that are going to go in those don't even have a car. They're going to use public transportation or a bike or something like that. So I think, where architects can help is to kind of start changing the way we think about how we're living and solve these problems.
I'm going to change gears here just because it's something I want to talk about. What's the worst project you've ever been a part of? And without naming any names, like what happened? What took it off the rails?
I mean, I tell everybody, I say, as an architect, and builders is builders, plumbers is plumbers, etc. The real reality is that we're all in the games of delivering expectations, right? Someone's paying somebody else to deliver a service or a promise or whatever. And when that doesn't happen, it goes south very quickly. And so I'm trying to think. I got asked this the other day, and I was trying to think. I've had some where we've had to have some pretty heart to heart conversations, but I've never had one where, for one, I would never scream and yell at a client ever. I've never done that, and I would demand from them that they don't do it to me. So if a client raised his voice or she started screaming at me, I would politely say, listen, if you want to carry on this conversation, certainly do it in a tone that is respectful. And we'll continue and we'll talk about this and I'll explain what happened and we'll figure out how to solve it. But, I've had some projects where I've had to take it a little bit and say, okay, listen, I'll do that on me and figure this out or whatever, but nothing really bad. In part of it is, my fee relative to the contractor's price is small, right? I mean, so when it comes down to it, the contractors have a lot more skin in the game than I do. And not only that, but I'm always at the front end of the project. Like I'm the happy part of the project, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I get to work with the architect. Oh, look at a pretty picture. Oh, look at this elevation. Oh, the framer's 4 weeks behind. What the hell?
Yeah.
Right. It's like it goes that quickly. So I don't, that I've had some projects that the client and homeowner have gotten into it, and it's always tough because then I'm getting texts and emails from the client saying, we need to figure this out, and I'm getting something from the builder saying, man, you got to talk to her, she's going off the rails. And I'm sitting there going, okay, here's I'm being a partnership consultant here.
Do you see the role of the architect as the kind of mediator between the builder and the client? Is that a fair description? Is it fair that you have to do that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's, my job is to establish the intent of what we want to do. And there are times where it's one of those things where, like anything, you have to pick your battles, right? There's times where I could come in and see something that the builder has done that doesn't match what we were thinking. And for whatever reason, and I say, that really doesn't match, but you know what, it's not far off. Let's just not continue that. Let's do this or whatever. And then there's times where I've had to go in and just say, listen, I hate to do this, but we got to pull that down. We cannot, that is not the intent. She is not going to be happy. Every time she walks in the house, she's going to see that and she's going to cringe. So we cannot have that. And most of the time they're good about it. I mean, a lot of the good builders have even some of that stuff. I work with one builder and he has a framing correction number in his budget, right? He'll put literally like $2 or $3 grand in the bid or the estimate. That's just, it says framing correction. He says, listen, we might not use it. And then I just don't bill you for it. Mm-hmm. But it's part of the big number that you see that we have, some Band-Aid protection. I mean, granted, we're not reframing the roof for $3 grand, but if a homeowner walks in and says, oh, I just saw this, can we reframe that for this larger refrigerator that I saw over the weekend? Yeah, okay, we can reframe it. And then they don't have to get hit up with a change order because that they'll just, yank $1,500 down from the framing correction number.
That's really smart. And
yeah.
I think that's a really good idea.
Well, you got to think about, as a builder, just like I said, I'm at the happy part of the deal. What's the most frustrating part for any homeowner? It's the last 2 weeks of the job. They're chomping at the bit to get in. They're getting hit with all the last change orders, which are taking the number they thought they were paying and making it higher, and all the stress that's associated with it. It's at an all-time high. So by putting that number in up front, yeah, okay, so it takes the number. But if you're building a house for 850K, right? Is there really a big difference between 850 and 854?
No.
Probably not, right? And the clients know it up front. But the beauty is they've accepted it at the happy time. And so when you do actually get to use it, and it is that more stressful time, you're not adding stress to the project. You're actually in some ways relieving it, because it's like, hey, no problem. We'll make that change, and we'll just drain it out of that one line item.
I've heard on a related note, builders say when a project goes sideways, they had intuition about it. They didn't listen to that little voice in their head that either said, stay away from this client, or don't let them get ahead of you, or do you put any stock in that kind of intuition? Do you have that quality? Have you seen that manifest itself?
Yeah. So, and I think it comes with time and experience. And, I have a good friend, builder, that I've done a bunch of work with. And one of his favorite comments that he says that I absolutely love is, yeah, I have a handful of clients. I wish I paid them all $1,000 to go away. I would have made more money. And I find that really interesting. But up until, I don't know, only a couple of years ago, I think, was the first time I said no to a potential client. And I just said one probably about 10 months ago, and the guy almost wanted to have an argument with me on why
he was offended.
Why I needed to take him on. And I basically told him, I said, Joe, I said, I sent you a proposal. You debated it. I altered it in your favor. You had this third party friend of yours. I had to get on the phone and chat with him. And then I'm chatting with you. And it's like, you don't accept the proposal. We're into this for 6 weeks. I probably have 3 or 4 hours buried into this, talking with you, meeting you at the job site. I told you that your schedule wasn't realistic to me, and all of this. And I said, if we can't start out at a happy place on day one, where are we going to be day 200? Right? Because things, you don't get better, right? They might get the same or carry the same happiness, but I don't have experience in starting a project and having it all of a sudden be like some kind of dream later. There's things that get added to that. So, and when I told him no, he's like, what do you mean? He goes, you can't do that. I'm like, I just did. I can. I said, I'm remitting my proposal. I wish you luck. And he's like, well, we really need to talk about this. I need to get this rolling. And I'm like, no, we've talked enough. I'm done. And and I've been meaning to drive by and see it, because I have had other people that have done that to me. One of the things I try to be is when we have that first initial meeting and I talk about projects with people, I try and be brutally honest. And, I've had clients, where we're meeting in, say, March or April, and they say, oh, well, we want to be in the ground by September. And I'm like, I don't see this happening. It's probably next spring. Well, I've been talking to some other people, and they say we can, go for a permit in August or September, and my builder's ready. And it's like, then go work with them. I don't know what to tell you, but we're not going to work together, and I'm not going to be able to make that happen. And a couple of these were in the town I live in, and lo and behold, I drive by there September, no work, October, no work, November, December, January, February, March, I see, a fence go up around the property, and they're starting demo. And it's like, I lost that job. We didn't get to work together because you didn't trust me. And that's fine, because if you don't trust me, we shouldn't embark on the project.
How do you get the confidence to do that, Steve? It's
Well,
got to be very scary, right? You just said, no, I don't need this paycheck, right?
it is, but it isn't, because remember what I said before. If you firmly believe that we're in the job of managing expectations, then I have to set them. So if you come to me and say, "Hey, Steve, I want to build this, $1 million house, but do you think we can have drawings by the 4th of July?" Hell no. Maybe 4th of July 21,
Mm-hmm.
we can be ready for it, but certainly not this year. And we'd be lucky to get it in by the fall of this year. And there are some clients that sit there and say, "Nah, I need to make this happen." Well, that's fine. Find somebody that can make it happen. But it's no different than the conversation of people come to me and say, "Oh, I want to do this, 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 and that." And I've even stopped asking them, do they have a budget? I start now. My question is, do you have a number that scares you? And it starts the conversation, because they come back with, "Well, what do you mean by scares me?" I said, "Well, if I asked you for a budget, you're going to tell me a number that's about 20% lower than what you would actually do, or a number that kind of redlines your budget, right?" So rather than ask you that and play, games with numbers, I'm just asking you, what is that red line number? What's the number that scares you? Like, if the first number is a 5 on this project, does that scare you? And I'm not talking 50 grand. "Oh yeah, we're thinking the first number is a 3." Okay, well, if you're thinking it's a 3, then we either need to cut the scope, by 40%, or you need to come up with more money. And they say, "Well, we have another builder, and this other person said, we could do this for $185 a square foot." It's whatever the number is. It doesn't really matter. But so what I tell them is, I said, "Okay," I said, "You asked me. I told you I'm being brutally honest here. I could come in here and say, yeah, you can do that for $150 a foot. I can charge you up the wazoo, draw it up, put in fancy stone masonry fireplace, all this stuff. Then you can give it to the builder, and he tells you it's $550, and you look at me like I have 3 eyes, and I just simply tell you, well, you picked an expensive builder, and you made expensive choices, and your checks are cashed, by the way." I could do that to you, but I'm not. I'm
Mm-hmm.
being honest up front, because I want to embark on this journey with honesty. I don't want to, I don't want to be lying to you on day one. So I need you to respect that. And I also need you to be honest with me on day one, so that when we embark on this project, then we're good. And for the most part, a lot of people appreciate it. And I tell them up front, and the builders that I've been working with for a long time, they know it. I literally tell clients, I say, "Listen, if you come to me with a bad idea, I'm going to tell you it's a dumb idea." I say, I don't have time to waste my time, and certainly you're paying me, so you don't want me to waste your time. So I'll take everything and look at it very objectively. But if I think it's just a bad idea, then I'm going to tell you that's a bad idea. But if you want to pursue it, then we can. But understand that that's on you, not me.
One of the things
So,
I hear about from most often from builders about architects is that the designs often far exceed the budget, which is a lot what you're talking about just now, right? And why is that? Where is the disconnect there? Why do architects, and many architects, think stuff costs less than it does?
I think it cost they. I don't know if they don't think it costs less, or I mean, there's probably a handful of them out there that just truly don't understand. I mean, I'm always going and asking. I go out to the job sites, look at projects, but I also ask them, "Hey, the homeowner upgraded from this to that. What's the bump on numbers there? What are we talking to go to that type of countertop, or to go to that type of patio doors on the screen and porch?" And he's like, "Oh, that's probably like a 10K extra." Okay, and then I pack that away. So the next time people come out there and say, "Hey, I want to do this multi-slide door on our screen porch," okay, well, just be prepared. That door is about $2,000 a foot installed. "Oh, really?" Well, the unit, I saw it online for like, uh, I don't know, $800 a foot or something. I'm like, "Yeah, that's the cheapest unit uninstalled. That's delivered to the end of your driveway and in a box. That's nobody doing anything." Um, but I try and have a good handle on everything I'm doing. And believe it or not, I mean, I get a lot of projects, especially with the builder design build sector, that people come to us because what happens is homeowner works with architect, they give it to one of the builders I have worked with, and they're expecting, and we just had one a couple of years ago. They were expecting like 700. The builder came in at like 1.1. And the homeowner's like, what the hell's that all about? It's like, well, did you ever have a conversation with the architect? No. Well, then how do you know what you were expecting? I don't know. He just kept drawing. And I mean, there was this, big, I don't know, 24-foot stone masonry, fireplace in this clear story family room and this and that and all that. And the homeowner said, I really need this number to be down more like 750, maybe even up to 800. And the builder said, listen, he goes, you can't take a project like this and hack out 200K. It's a different project. We're not removing a little crown molding and painting walls white and taking out a few built-ins here. That's not going to save you 200K. And a lot of times it's, hey, here's an architect I work with. If you tell us what your budget is, then we'll work together and define a project that fits inside that goalpost. And we did, and they're extremely happy. And, they still got almost everything they wanted. It's just we redesigned it in such a way that it worked for them and with the builder. Having all three of us, and I say three of us, meaning clients and me and the builder at the table, and having honest conversations, that's the best way to go about a project, right? Because everybody understands expectations at that point, especially financial ones, which are usually the ones that become the basis of argument.
Amen. Can you tell me a little bit about your house? You mentioned that you live north of Boston.
I live, north of Boston, 1957 Cape that, I don't know, 8 years ago, I put an addition on, which was basically another Cape perpendicular to it on the side. Aesthetically, I think it's one of the nicest in the neighborhood, certainly. And it's got some nice features, but it's a very traditional Cape. I'm very fortunate. It's a nice wooded lot. I have a couple maple trees out front that are, I don't know, probably 24 inches thick or something in the trunk. So it's an old world neighborhood. And the old house is a slab on grade, and I have a basement in the new one. So it works for us. It's not over the top architect-y.
So a lot of people buy houses because it's what they can afford. A few people are lucky to be able to decide they want an architectural style of home and then go seek it out. Is this a house you were able to buy, or is it one you wanted?
I think we wanted the location. So there, it was when we bought the original house, it was probably 1450s square foot Cape, 3-bedroom, 2 bedrooms downstairs and one upstairs with some storage, slab on grade. So, but it's on a really beautiful wooded lot. We have about 300 foot width conservation property that runs behind our property. So we get all kinds of animals and stuff running through there. But in the summer, basically, it feels like you're in the middle of the woods. So it works out really well. And I'm 10 miles from Boston, 12 miles from Boston. So you can't, the price of this property will never go down.
I'm sure that's true. Did you do some of the work on your addition and on your house through the years? Is that something you're interested in? Do you like it?
Yeah. I mean, I had a builder friend that came out and helped me frame it. And actually, I say help me frame it, but him and his guys pretty much framed it for me. But I did he did the stairs and the handrails and stuff like that. But I trimmed out all the doors, all the windows, and stuff like that. I worked, and actually the guy that did the framing and such, I worked for him years ago when I first got out of the Marine Corps, before I went to architecture school, and framed a couple houses with him and stuff. He's a high school friend and has a carpentry business. And so he did a bunch of the big stuff. And I like doing the little stuff. I could never make money at it. I mean, what?
Because you're too fussy?
Well, I'm fussy, but it's slow. I mean, finish work is I'm not trying to take anything away from finish carpenters, because there's probably a lot of things that I can't do. But if you're using square stock and trimming out a window and stuff, if you take your time and you know a couple little tricks that some of the older guys will show you, then it's really not that difficult. And it was fine. It was beautiful because we were living in the house that the original house that we purchased. So the addition was all newfound space. And the benefit of that is when it came time to say trim out all the doors, I set up sawhorses in what would be our bedroom, and I was able to sand down all the stock when it came from the lumber yard, and then I pre-treated it, and then stained it, sanded it, hit it again, and then finished it. So I had a little finishing shop up there that really wasn't bothersome because it was in the new space that was added space, not space we absolutely needed at the time. So
is it difficult being an architect and working on your own house? Do you have to check your standards? Do you have to, I mean, I'm in a position where I want everything I see because I'm exposed to the beautiful appliances, like you said, in my job, all these great materials. But honestly, I can't afford that stuff. Is that something you struggle with?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that because what was it? It was probably like 2 weeks ago where I walked in the front door, and for whatever reason, I remember thinking back when I designed the addition. It's like, I had an option where I had this looking up to a little bridge on the second floor there. I still think that would have been a cool idea, but I'm happy with the way it turned out. But so you still question everything. It's a challenge, but like I tell clients, it's like you have to make a confident decision and you got to move on. And what we did was certainly in our best interest. We got the spaces we need. They're used very well. It works very well for us. So
How'd you solve your notoriously air leaky Cape half walls? Did you have to tackle that?
yeah, I personally tackled all of that. And it's funny because little anecdotal story. I remember in the old section of the house, it was late at night, and I was pulling down drywall or insulation and pulling it out. And so I'm down in this little knee space, and I'm not the tiniest guy in the world. But I'm down in there, and I had the light on. I pull down this insulation, and there's a massive beehive in there.
Oh, God.
And then these things go airborne. And it's like, I'm trying to get out of this little freaking cubby space. I'm getting swarmed by all these bees. And I was like, what the hell? And it's like, no, I'm going to go sit at my desk, get paid to do what I do. And I'm going to ask somebody to come here and do this. But the air sealing details, I did all of those where I ran some rigid foam down the underside of the rafters to help beef up the R value there, but it got all air sealed into the band joist kind of top plate of the first floor on the Cape. And then the knee walls just are, uninsulated storage spaces.
It's been awesome having you on the show, Steve. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Hey, man, I really like this format. I listened to the first two, as much as I hate to say it, old Pioneer Builders did a really good job. Nah, I like Brian. We just go back and forth.
He's just like the nicest guy, right?
He's a really sharp guy. Him and his brother, they're both awesome. And of course, the king of the building industry, Mike Gerton, who doesn't love listening. I love busting his chops. He said, hey, I was working on this project the other day. I go, let me guess. You had a 2x4, a rubber band, and, a paper clip. And somehow you fixed the heat pump, or whatever. It's like, I love it.
So who do you think we should have on next?
I'm like, ooh, who do you have on next? Well, I would say one of the people that I find extremely interesting and that I'm sure you can relate to, trying to get him. And I'm going to talk to him later today, and I'll tell him. But I think you need to hit up Peter Yost and
I love that.
Have him come on and ask him. I tell people it's like, I certainly have my own level of knowledge and feel good about what I know, but there's a lot of times where it's like, I have no idea here. I'm going to call Peter.
That's cool.
And that's my answer, because and if he doesn't know, then he has the link to the next level person of, let me ask this guy at the Wood Council or NHB or this or that or APA, whatever. it's like, yeah, I got an old friend there. Let me call him. And
I hope he's interested, because I would love to have him on. I think that would be awesome.
I think he would be really, really good, and to tap his expert. I mean, he's a nut. He goes into his basement. He does all these building science experiments, and
I love it. It's great.
Yeah, he's a trip.
He's a fantastic presenter too. I had only seen him for the first time at our Fine Homebuilding Summit, and it was so entertaining. He's just very fun to watch present.
He's a good time, and him and I, we have a couple presentations, home building crossroads, where we go around the country. So it's really cool, because knowing, we've done the presentation, I don't know, probably 50 times now. So like, I know when to get queued up and get ready for my little dig. So you're in a room with 200 people, and Peter, he says something. Remember where when we used to do laundry, where it was done as a kid? And I said, yeah, down by the river. And, the whole place erupts in laughter. But and he does the same to me, but it's just, having that knowledge of what's coming, we can make it a very entertaining day for everybody involved. So,
do you want to plug the Instagram account?
Yes, I was just going to say, I just talked for over an hour and never even mentioned Stephen Baczek, architect. So, man, I'm like about 20 behind. But you could find me at Stephen Baczek Architect on Instagram. Please follow along. I try and put up good information every day. Occasionally I'll throw up a pretty picture to help remind everybody that I'm actually an architect that does stuff, but the pretty stuff. But I put up stuff more about how can we help the industry understand a thermal bridge or an air tightness or a water management concept. So I put a lot of that stuff up, and I think it's well received. So
I'm a recent follower, I must admit, and it's awesome. All of it is very interesting. And I love when you show off the craft of home building, because I think that's lost on many architects, that someone has to make this stuff that they come up with, and oftentimes it's not easy. And that's awesome for those of us who are on the hand side to see that, for sure.
And I think it's really important from a lot of perspectives. If you're a young builder, the fact that you just said that, it kind of sprung this little point. But so I'm doing that one pool house, and it has the sloped ceiling joists. So when you look at the finished picture, you look at that and say, oh, wow, that's really nice. That's really cool. But you really don't understand how involved it was to simply take that from a horizontal member to these two sloping members. I mean, my structural engineer had a cow over it, and, I had to kind of coerce him into, not that he couldn't do it. He just said, Steve, this is, really complicated. The plates are offset, this and that, they're sloped. So it changes a lot of the dynamics of what typically happens there. But again, if I just posted the pretty picture, you'd sit there and say, yeah, that looks nice. Okay, like it, bang. But if I post the technical structural drawing that we worked with, and I talked about, hey, this is what made this complicated. Well, now when you're a young builder and somebody says, hey, can we slope that? Hopefully it triggers and says, yeah, I remember seeing that post. This isn't that easy. We got to work this out. That's just not a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. There's some work involved there. So I'll have to get back to you on that. So.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks to Steve Baczek for joining me. Thanks, Steve.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Happy building. Thanks for listening.